Damon, there has and will be a lot of talk about the environmental impacts of the restoration, the historic restoration of Pinehurst number 2. As Bill Corr says, we're going back to the future. But the conservation of water and other resources is actually really a byproduct of not just the restoration of number 2, and not just for the long-term future of the game, but this is really about the long-term future of the cradle of American golf.
In 1948, he designed, built, or restored over 400 courses in the United States.
I think if Donald Ross were alive today, first of all, he would say of all the magnificent golf courses he built in the United States, I do think he would say this is my masterpiece.
Jack Nicklaus has said from time to time it's probably the most architecturally perfect golf course he's seen.
People come to number 2 to see number 2. They come to want to play number 2. No matter where you go in the country, people who had never had the opportunity to play here were anxious to get here. It's a jewel.
If there's a St. Andrews to golf in America, most would say it's Pinehurst. Over 100 years old and host of multiple professional and amateur championships, this nation's old course is number 2.
I think Ross's course probably started changing a little bit when he died in '48. And I think it got a little bit more manicured. I think a lot of the areas were thinned out. And pretty soon that golf course visually looked like any Southern club about anywhere. There were a lot of people that questioned where we had gone with the golf course.
A lot of those distinctive sandy elements had been lost just slowly over time.
What had happened really back in the 1970s is that was replaced with Bermuda grass rough. And then for the U.S. Opens, that rough just got narrower and narrower.
After decades of age and layers of paint, it was time to consider going back to number 2's original wood finish.
The golf world has always respected that golf course. And if you don't have that day in and day out, you cannot just be a place that just hosts the Open. It's got to be more than that. We can't be viewed in the light we're at. It has to be in its purest form. It has to be what Ross intended. It's a national treasure, and we had to restore it. And he said, if we do this, who would we work with?
It was a lightning bolt out of the blue sky to us. We had no inclination it was coming. We'd heard no rumors of any work at Pinehurst or anything.
When we met with Bill and finally decided we're going to do it, Bill and Ben said, what area are you looking at? What are we taking it back to? And almost in unison, Bob Dedman and I looked him right in the eye and said, that's up to you.
Probably the discovery that led to all our confidence and the project itself was the fact that a man by the name of Craig Disher, he said, I have 8 by 10 photographs of every single hole on Pinehurst number 2, taken on Christmas Day, 1943. You could see the outlines of the fairways, the outlines of the greens. You could see people playing golf.
The more old pictures that we could see, the better off it was. You can pick up so many things. You pick up edges of bunkers, edges of the fairways, what the rough looked like. So many things. It's so revealing.
We took them out there, looked at the flag center lines and the flags on the edges of where the fairways were, stood with the photograph, they matched perfectly. We had the proverbial roadmap to what was.
It's one thing to have discovered old images and newfound confidence, but before they'd commit, Bill Corr and Ben Crenshaw needed more.
If you're talking about undertaking this restoration prior to the Open Championships, where's the USGA come in on all this?
I don't think they actually believed it at first. It took us going out on the golf course and Bill and Ben saying, well, here's what we'd like to do on the first hole. Are you okay with that? Yeah, we're fine with that.
When Mike gave us that green light, so to speak, and Don Padgett and Bob Dedman had said, go for it, we were in.
The historic restoration was not void of resistance to change.
As I'm walking out of here late one day and the restoration had just begun and grass is going off the course and everybody's wondering what's happening, this guy comes over and stops me on the way to my car and he goes, "I don't know what the hell you're doing, but I'll tell you one thing." He said, "You better not mess this up." He said, "Because as this golf course goes, so goes this entire town." And he turned around and walked away.
We stripped out those 35 acres of grass, and that's when people thought, what are you doing? This is perfectly good grass. Anybody in town who needed grass could come by and just pick it up. So that sod went all over Moore County. It's on football fields, churches.
We didn't want to change it's just, I hope people understand, we didn't want to change so much, but try to enhance it.
They went out on a limb hugely because they believed it was the right thing to do for Pinehurst number 2 and for Pinehurst.
And in the end, we are only left to guess what Donald Ross would say about Corin Crenshaw's restoration of the crown jewel of his prolific portfolio.
I think he would come back and not only would he praise Bill Coore and Ben Crenshaw, I think he would be astonished at just how great a work they did. I think Donald Ross would be beyond proud. In fact, I think he'd be so proud, he might say, this course was designed by Donald Ross, Bill Coore, and Ben Crenshaw.
I hope that he would be compatible with what we did off of the fairways, because that's what was there in its native surroundings.
I don't know that I've ever been involved in anything business-wise that's been as well received as what this restoration has.
There probably has never been a greater contrast in the presentations of two golf courses for major championship play than there was between the Masters Championship this year at Augusta and what you're going to see here at Pinehurst.
Funniest thing after it was all over, Bob Dedman and I were in my office, and Bob looked at me in the eye and he goes, "Well, Pads," he goes, "this is going to be either the smartest thing we ever did or the stupidest thing we ever did."
Did we make the right calls? I don't know. You're going to get a lot of opinions here pretty soon.
Matt, I imagine the opinions are already coming in hot and heavy. What are people saying? You've reported on this story of the restoration like few other people's. What is the reaction in town right now and at the golf course?
Damon, honestly, I've been here now 2 days. I've been hanging out with Bill and Ben. I've been hanging out with the powers to be at Pinehurst. I've been asking questions of players. I have yet to hear anybody be critical of the restoration, the decision to restore. I just think this is, as Don Padgett said, this is one of the most successful things that I've certainly seen. You're talking about Pinehurst number 2. We're talking about one of the most popular public golf courses in America, in the world. And they rolled the dice, and you know what? They won.